Good evening, everyone. This is the Planning Commission meeting of March 26, 2025. I will call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Cooley,
Here.
Commissioner Copeland,
Here.
Commissioner Cueva,
Present.
Vice Chair Smith,
Here.
Chairman Southard.
Here. All right, looks like we are all here. We'll go ahead and move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Cueva, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
No adjustments to the agenda.
Perfect. Any conflicts of interest to disclose? Hearing none, we'll move to item B, public comment period. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item C, that is action items, public hearings and requests. That will lead us to approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
So moved. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we ask for a roll call, please?
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes.
Commissioner Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Cueva,
Yay.
Vice Chair Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Southard.
I'm going to abstain on that, Nicole, since I was not here at the last meeting. Okay, that moves us to item C2, plot plan PP 2023-0591 for a proposed 15-unit apartment complex commonly referred to as Aegis Beaumont, located at 1360 East 6th Street, APN 419-232-039. Staff report, please.
Technical difficulties. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Jillian Fountain, Planning Staff. An application for a plot plan for a proposed 15-unit multifamily apartment project was submitted to the city on July 17, 2023. Property owners located within 300-foot radius of the project were notified of the intended public hearing on February 28, 2025, with a 10-day hearing notice in addition to a public notice in the Press Enterprise. At this time, staff has received one comment letter that has been provided to you this evening. The proposed application was previously brought forward and continued without discussion at the Planning Commission meeting on March 12, 2025. The Planning Commission voted 3-0 to continue this item to this evening's meeting. At this time, the applicant has completed the public works requirements that were outstanding. The municipal code allows for multifamily residential projects in the 6th Street mixed-use residential zone, subject to a plot plan. The proposed request to construct a 2-story apartment complex consisting of 9 3-bedroom units and 6 1-bedroom units, totaling 15 apartment units at 1360 East 6th Street within the 6th Street mixed-use residential zone. The proposed development is consistent with the General Plan Policy 3.3.1 that supports the development of new housing opportunities as defined by the land use element contained in the General Plan, and Policy 3.3.2 to develop a variety of housing types at varying densities that meet the needs of residents of a variety of incomes, lifestyles, and needs. This project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Environmental Quality Act, as the project meets the criteria for application of a Class 32 infill categorical exemption. The property is Zone 6th Street Mixed Use Residential and has a current general plan land use designation of downtown mixed use. The property is surrounded by 6th Street Mixed Use Residential Zone property to the north, east, west, and west, with the property to the south as 6th Street Mixed Use. All have a general plan land use designation as downtown mixed use properties. The site is 0.6 acres, consisting of one parcel, and is currently vacant and unimproved with the exception of existing curb and overhead power lines on 6th Street. The project as proposed will require a minimum of 26 parking spaces, of which 13 are required to be covered. The applicant is proposing 26 parking spaces with 14 of them being covered. The project as proposed will provide one full access unsignalized 26-foot wide driveway entrance on 6th Street. The project is also required to pay for the transportation uniform mitigation fee, development impact fees, and/or fair share fee consistent with the city's requirements. The proposal includes water quality measures, parking and access areas, and underground utilities. The minimum usable open space requirement for multifamily residential projects in the 6th Street mixed-use residential zone within the downtown zoning section is not specified. Therefore, staff enforces the downtown residential multifamily zone requirement of 100 square feet per unit for projects with fewer than 20 units. The total open space requirement for this project is 1,500 square feet, and the project exceeds this requirement by proposing 1,825 square feet of usable open space with a recreation area, community barbecue, patio area, and tot lot. Each unit will also offer at least 100 square feet of private open space in the form of patios and covered balconies. The project is proposing a contemporary modern style of architecture that includes cantilevered roof lines, vertical and horizontal articulation, and varying materials. The exterior accents include decorative hardy plank siding, pop-outs, modern cable hand and guardrails, powder-coated to match the building color palette of off-white, tan, and brown. The roof will be sloped to the east from 24 feet to 30 feet. The required plot plan findings can be adequately met and are included in the staff report. Staff recommends that PC hold a public hearing, approve plot plan 2023-0591, subject to the attached conditions of approval, and direct staff to prepare a notice of exemption for the applicant to file with the county clerk recorder. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The owner is also in attendance tonight for any questions as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that report. Do we have any discussion from the commission here? Commissioner Smith?
Excuse me. So Public Works is satisfied with, everything being met at this point?
Yeah, the one outstanding item was related to the PWKMP report.
Yeah.
You'll see in the plot plan.
I see the two basins that are right up there
Yeah,
in front.
there's two basins in the front. Those
Okay.
are infiltration trenches, and those are one of the 7 LIDBMP types that are acceptable in Riverside County.
Okay. And, it's consistent with all the zoning requirements, everything else on there? Okay. And then this wouldn't be subject to the objective design standards, or?
No, this application came in before those.
Okay, but it still looks like there's a significant amount of architectural relief around the building and?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, they've done a good job with that.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from commission?
I have a question. What are the, in here you say attached conditions of approval, what are they?
So that's the attached conditions of the approval in the staff report.
Okay,
So they're not in this presentation,
Right.
they're in the staff report. I don't know off the top of my head.
very many?
Yes, it's a handful of pages of conditions. So it's conditions of approval from the planning department, building, public works, wastewater, police department. So all of those are compiled into one document for the applicant.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to review it, so I will later. Okay.
So I'm just going to tell you what page those start in the staff report. Page 14 of the staff report.
Thank you.
I did have one more question. Is this a market rate project or is this an affordable project? Market rate? Okay,
Market rate.
thank you.
It doesn't look like we have any other questions from commission here. So I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at 6:10 PM. Are there any requests to speak? Yeah, good, just go ahead and come on up.
Your mic is on.
Okay,
Good evening, welcome.
we got a little echo going here. Is it me? Is it me? Is that better? I guess it is. My name is Daryl Moore. I'm actually not the owner. I'm a project manager for the project. And I just like to, the one thing I want to bring up tonight is we want to request relief of one of the conditions that we have in our plans. And I'm actually not asking for relief of a condition. I'm asking for relief of half a condition. And if you're unable to grant it here, we'll just argue it at city council. The condition is the undergrounding of the wires in front of our property and then moving a power pole 15 feet east over onto or west over to the next property. And we have no problem with undergrounding the wire, but the power pole is a huge problem. And it's a problem due to cost, complexity, and certainty. The cost of moving these Edison poles typically is about $100,000 for just a line pole. If you have a junction pole, it can go to $250,000. I don't know where they get their numbers, but they're just insane. And unfortunately, we can't even get the number now because they won't give us a number until we have a project. In other words, we'd have to take this thing all the way through your system, pay all the cost, get a permit, then go to Edison. They'll give us a number. If the number is 250, we probably would just drop this thing and just be really sad that we spent all the money. But that's just where we're at on that. We're working with Public Works, and because what happened when we turned these plans in, you had the old system where you would form a utility district to do this, which we have no problem with. But then while our plans were in, they changed the rules where they could just ask for a onesie, and we never want to underground a onesie, one pole, because that's just ridiculously expensive. This is the last little district that's never been ungrounded. There are only 16 poles. It goes from our lot to the last pole is just on the west side of Michigan Street. So it's a 16-pole district. If that's done as a district, Edison plans the whole thing. People pay their share, we pay our share, and away we go. But when you do one pole, it's just crazy expensive. And so it could really jeopardize this project, but I'll give you even a bigger problem later. Then the complexity of it. We got to deal with Edison, and Edison doesn't give away anything. They don't give you any consulting. We can't even pay for consulting right now to get them to tell us the pricing. They're backlogged, they're slow. It's just a nightmare. Once we have a plan, they'll eventually work with us, but the way it's been going, particularly since COVID, it's just never fast enough. So there's complexity. And then there's also certainty, because when you work with Edison on these poles, we can't bid it out. We have to use Edison. We can't use another power company. And that makes a certain amount of sense. But they will not move a pole, even though this pole is in the utility right-of-way, unless the neighbor consents to it. The neighbor happens to be a big company, Extra Space Storage, so we'd only be moving a pole 1 foot onto their property, and it would be in the utility right-of-way. They would never be there, but it wouldn't hurt anything. And we've had many email exchanges with them, but basically they won't say yes. They just won't say yes to do this. So that gets into the certainty of this project. If this project gets all the way through city council and this condition stays on it and we get a permit, if the neighbor will not consent to the pole, we would never be able to build this project. So, it's one of these things where it sounds like a wonderful idea to get rid of poles, and that's a good idea, but doing it this way is the most destructive way to do it. I mean, this is really, really bad. People talk about how difficult, time-consuming, and costly it is to get permits in California. This is just a prime example. This sounds like a good idea, but when you get into the bowels of it and look at the technical details, it really sets up a nightmare for us. So we would like relief for this one portion of the condition, the moving the pole part, and we would like to just pay into the district, because the Public Works Department could set the district up. I had meetings with them. I thought we were going to do it. Then they, for some reason, they just changed their mind, and we're back to undergrounding the pole. And it's really destructive. And we just really don't want to do it. But if you can't grant that here, we want to get our permit or pass through here and keep going. But maybe you could send a note along to the city council, because many times people put these things in and they just don't understand the real meaning of it. In this case, it's terrible. I mean, it's very, very bad, particularly with a neighbor just refusing to be reasonable. They will not be reasonable, and it's just a terrible situation.
Thank you for your comment. I think we'll get through public comment, and then we can follow up on some of that discussion. Do we have any other requests to speak?
There was a written email sent that has been printed out for all of you, and it'll be included in the file. I have no other written comments. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing at 6:16 p.m. And I guess we'll have some follow-up question for staff here on those. Do you have any concerns about the relinquishing those conditions?
The condition is a reflection of the municipal code requirement. So there's nothing that I can do to remove it. There's a mechanism for a waiver. The waiver, I have the municipal code up, so I'll just read it. It's due to unnecessary hardship due to certain topographical conditions, street configurations, underground obstacles, soil, and water. So this is really, kind of unique conditions that they would have to meet to achieve the waiver. So the next possible route is an appeal. I believe it's I don't know off the top of my head if it's an appeal to city council or to planning commission. City council, okay. So there is a route. If gentleman chooses to appeal it.
So is it a formal appeal process, or is it, within our authority to take action on that as far as the conditions go?
My understanding is that the appeal needs to be filed within 15 days of the date of approval.
By the planning commission or by the city council?
It sounds like it's the city council.
So our code for plot plans and conditions states that the planning commission has an authority to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. Usually, if there's a decision that's made here, there's that 15-day appeal period. That's then, someone, whether the applicant or someone from the public, submits that request for an appeal, and then that's heard at city council. And usually it's based on what went on at planning commission or discussed.
I'm still not clear. Okay, so if the commission decides that that condition should be waived, do we have the authority to do that? Or are we just making a recommendation to the city council that that's what we think should be done?
That one is particularly challenging because it is a code requirement in our municipal code, which would be, it would essentially be almost like a variance. So right now before you, we don't have an application for a variance of that requirement. So that would be something we would need to follow up on.
And that application for a variance would come from who? The property owner, developer, whatever?
Correct, the applicant would request it.
Was this one of the items that was discussed with engineering, or is this the first time it's brought up?
It was discussed as part of the Development Review Committee. I wasn't in the discussion that he's referencing. I think there may have been some discussions with a previous engineer who was on board as a consultant. So I don't have any record of that discussion or what was agreed upon, but
But it's the Muni code that's driving the condition as a requirement.
correct, yeah. And it's the distance from the property line. So the existing pole is 17 feet away from the property line.
15.
15, okay.
Okay.
If the code allows it to remain in place if it's within 5 feet. So,
So to remove this pole, now, if I heard right, there are 14 poles in total?
16.
16. Okay, and to remove it, it's got to be moved off the property or within 5 feet of the property line?
Well, I guess it could be within 5 feet. That would be kind of, either one is kind of silly.
Well, yeah, let's not talk that. I'm just trying to clear.
I thought I wasn't allowed to speak. Once my time was up.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we have the number of poles. I've forgotten the exact number.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're talking about moving one and leaving all the rest of them.
Yeah, right.
Okay? And where we talking about moving this to? Are we forcing it on somebody else's property?
Yeah.
Or just moving it to the property line?
No, it would have to be, well, it would have to be moved onto their property to get it. Well, once we move it, I think, I don't know, Public Works may say something different, but I think once we move it, they want it off our property, so we would move it just like 1 foot onto their property or just onto it.
Well, it would
And
be
they
in
moved
the
it-
right of way though, not their private property.
Within the right of way, it
Into
was.
the right of
it's
way.
the-
Okay.
I don't think it's literally a right of way. I think it's an easement, but in any case, it's where utilities are allowed to go.
And the rest of the poles would remain?
Yes.
Thank you, that
But-
clarifies.
But the rest of the poles, correct me if I'm wrong, the rest of the poles are on the adjacent property owner's property.
there's 2 poles. One pole is already on the property line. That one stays, it can be, remain in place. The second pole is 17 feet away from the westernly property line. That's the one that, per municipal code, needs to move to the property line. So there's 2 poles total. One remains, one is required to move.
Which is in the frontage on the east side, correct?
That's what we call it, a junior. I'm calling it a junior pole. It's just an auxiliary pole. It just takes a few wires over that one property there. But we could underground all that. That's not a big deal.
So your proposal is to leave the western pole in place.
Right.
Underground along your property frontage.
Right, and also pay into the fund. We'll pay into.
If there is a fund.
Well, I mean, a fund could be created. We talked to the manager of the Edison District, and he would generate an estimate to do the whole job. He would do that. That's not the same thing as a bid, but it would be an estimate, and we would pay our pro rata share. But just, it would take some movement from the city for that to happen.
Does the city have any other dedicated funds to assist with Rule 20 undergrounding projects that Edison does?
Not that I'm aware of.
Those are the hardest funds to find, by the way, the Rule 20 funds.
Okay.
They're gonna put the plan up.
Okay. Oh, do I need to, I guess I need it back.
And then all the other properties they're developed along that corridor.
Right.
So there's not an opportunity for the new development that would have the same undergrounding requirement unless somebody were to significantly redevelop that, one of those properties.
Correct.
And so if a variance is requested, who would request that?
Well, if that could be the vehicle that would get it done, I think we would have to turn it in. I mean, you would say, you gotta turn in a variance, so we'd have to write one up and turn it in.
Yes, that would come from the applicant.
So based on this drawing that we see, we're talking about that pole on the left side of the photograph has
Yes,
to be moved to 1 foot over technically in front of the neighbor's property, but in the utility easement area.
So I think what's kind of interesting with this, I mean, if the Muni code requires it, our hands are somewhat tied, but I think you have a sympathetic ear.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. And bear in mind, the rules were changed midstream. When we started our project, the old rules applied. There was no single pole. There was all utility district, but they put it in last year, I think. I can't remember when it was, but we kind of got ambushed by that.
And then the appeal, that would be an appeal to city council, not appeal to planning commission? So we would, if we make note of it, you know, obviously, you know, I feel like, look, our hands are tied, we got the Muni code, we have to follow with what that is, that's what the requirements are for a plot plan. But, you know, if we have, I think, some sympathy up here for it, council will listen to that, potentially. But you still have to go through the appeal process, and that appeal is direct to city council?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
One further question. Time frame would this appeal typically take, and is that a financial burden on the developer?
Of course it is.
Well, how extensive is that versus being forced to move the whole pole?
Well, before I answer your direct question, the worst practical problem is we can't get any data till we get a permit. So we got to spend all the money, do all the finish, all the design, which is a very beautiful building. You can see that. I mean, we spent a lot of money already. We're going to spend a lot of money there. If we get all the way down to the wire and got a permit, and our neighbor would not say yes, we'd never be able to build it. I mean, it's just, and for us to be forced to take on that amount of uncertainty is just really unreasonable. It's silly. So, but is there a more direct question? Give me your direct question.
My direct question is, it appears to me that a variance is a less costly thing. How long is the delay likely to be, and is that delay going to kill the project too?
It's kind of hard to know. I have to tell you, just for your information, that since COVID, in construction and building is just total chaos, and a lot of the chaos centers around Edison. For example, Edison won't even do any Edison design until you have an approved grading plan. So all our plans, I've never been able to show Edison. Edison won't even look at them.
Yep.
So I have to spend the money to get the permit for them to look at it. But when that was happening, to get complicated switchgear, which this is, it was taking 52 weeks. Now, it used to take 6 weeks before COVID. Now it's 52 weeks. Well, you could build a project in 6 months, so you got your permit, but you can't even get Edison approval yet, because Edison has to accept the switchgear. That's one of the problems. They got to be designed by an engineer. They have to be UL approved, USERC, then Edison study, and that doesn't happen fast. You just go into the queue. Like Edison might not even look at the plans for 3 months. I mean,
So
truthfully, America can't run this way. I hope it gets fixed.
let me interrupt, because I'm going to kind of ask questions on process here. So if we approve the project, there's not really a ground to appeal the planning commission decision at that point when this goes to council, correct?
He would only be appealing the condition.
So it could be such that if we move forward with the project tonight, an appeal could be filed, and then the city council could hear the appeal and the project at the same hearing.
With the waiver that Hugo was referencing. Correct.
And I'm sorry, I need clarification. So make sure I'm hearing this correctly. We say, yes, it's okay, we issue the approval to move the power pole. It still goes to council. So all we're approving then is a recommendation to council for a final decision on it. We're not making a decision then.
You're approving the project as it stands.
Yeah, my understanding is.
Right,
is
right, that's
it's-
right.
You're
Council does not get
approving the
part.
project, because that's, oh, I'm sorry.
With the requirement, we're approving the project as it stands.
Yes,
With the
with the
requirement
conditions.
to underground that pole. If we make an exception to it, then it has to go to council.
Well, I don't think.
No, the
we
applicant
can't.
would need to appeal.
Yeah, the applicant needs to
that.
appeal.
Yeah.
Because
We
it
can't
is,
arbitrarily do it then.
because it is a
Muni code.
municipal code requirement, that appeal is gonna be taken to city council.
We don't have that authority to,
Not on
Change
planning
that
commission.
condition.
okay, I understand.
Yeah, I think if we were to pass, hypothetically, move the item forward tonight, this would give the applicant an opportunity to make that appeal to city council, but keeps the project moving forward.
Yes.
But we could make the recommendation to council
Well,
at the
because,
time
well,
that we
count,
approve it.
but we're not making any recommendations, so we just note it as part of our discussion.
Yeah, it would be
tonight.
noted in the discussion that.
Yeah.
So we can make an unofficial. All right, thank you.
So I am very much a supporter of eliminating poles, undergrounding lines, trying to clean up the city. I really feel that's something that's important for the city moving forward. I do feel that in this case, I'm looking at the pole that's on the west side of your property. The Edison distribution lines terminate at that western pole, and it looks like it's probably just the service line that drops down to a lower level, and then the low voltage communication that's transmitted from the west pole over to the east pole. So it's not a major Edison facility. To relocate that pole 5 feet over, essentially be rebuilding what's there now. It doesn't really change the frontage condition if it moves over 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet, whatever it is, right? It's not a huge difference. It's not going to change the look on that street significantly, in my opinion. As long as from that pole to the east, the communication and the service lines are undergrounded
there's no problem.
as has been indicated on here. So, looking at that and looking at those conditions, with how close it is to that property line, I'm comfortable giving a sympathetic ear to the case of that appeal, so long as we can still maintain that. But I would think that I would still approve the project as conditioned.
Yeah, so we can approve the project and the condition, but we can pass on the word that we think that an appeal would be an appropriate response for the developer to go forward with.
I really appreciate that. But I'll also say, there's actually a vault there too, because see, Edison won't tell us what's there. We can't know what's there, but there are risers on the pole, so there's undergrounding going someplace, and there's a whole vault there. So that might be a $200,000 pole. I mean, you just don't know until Edison tells you, and there's no way to get around that.
Well, it still could be.
Yeah, it still could be, yeah.
It still
it's
could be.
just- Yeah,
But I do think the undergrounding along the remaining of the frontage would be necessary on the property just to help to clean it up
Yeah, no,
and move that street. But I can understand the I'm gonna say frustration with moving a pole 5 feet.
yeah.
Okay, any more discussion?
I just wanted to say that I support the idea of approving the project as it stands with a recommendation to council that should an appeal be made, that council would support the approval of that appeal.
That would be greatly appreciated.
Does any commission member want to make a motion?
Can I,
So,
can I
yes,
add one thing?
Yes.
please.
Is there may be a mechanism for a waiver. Sorry, there may be a mechanism for a waiver. It seems to apply to properties with frontage less than 300 feet. And I think this is about 170.
175 feet,
So
176, whatever.
So, okay, so
What is that?
now we're talking waiver. Is that another application that's handled at a staff level, or is that something that would need to have action taken by us tonight?
unfortunately, I would need to research it a little bit.
Okay.
And
So-
do we continue?
We
Well,
could make
here-
a
well,
conditional recommendation.
I was going to say, so at this point, is there any further discussion at this point before I make a motion?
Just one comment, I think I know where you're going. Maybe we table this, get the research done so that we know what we're doing. Find out if this waiver does apply.
And we could find out, we could clean up the conditions of approval to reflect that waiver.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I think I'd be of the mind to consider moving things forward and having that be,
Part of the motion would be,
Correct.
support of a waiver as we described tonight to leave the western pole but underground the remainder of the frontage. I just don't know if the waiver gets submitted, if we still have to come back for, it may have to come back, but at the same time, that does allow for the applicant to move forward and start processing with Edison.
So are you suggesting that the motion include support of a waiver
That was gonna be my motion.
as well as support of an appeal if necessary?
Well, no, I don't think we need
Support.
to say anything about an appeal. But if the property frontage is
Not
subject to
necessarily, I agree, not in the motion, but
Right.
commission would support that.
and yes, I think we've had that discussion.
I like it.
Yeah.
The only question I would have is you were saying that it allows the applicant to move forward. However, if we send this to council and that hasn't been determined as of yet, we're sending it to
still back
council
here.
with
Yeah.
the conditions of approval that we have in front of us
Well,
now.
but council doesn't review plot plans. So we are the approval authority on this project.
Okay, then I would. I think you know where I would be going.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion then to approve the plot plan as recommended with a, comment on there that with support for a waiver to maintain the western pole and underground the remaining wires from that point to the eastern property line.
And I will second that.
And we'll let the city attorney figure out if that will work or not.
Can you restate the motion, please?
I move to approve as, as presented with a recommendation that planning commission supports a potential for a waiver under the provision that it's less than 300 foot of property frontage to maintain the western pole, but underground the remaining lines from that point to the east.
For clarification, not relocate the western pole,
Maintain it,
just maintain.
maintain it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes.
Commissioner Copeland,
Yes,
Commissioner Cueva,
Yay.
Vice Chair Smith,
Yes,
Chairman Southard.
Yes.
Mr. Patterson will have fun figuring out if we need to bring that back.
Okay, item moves forward. All right, that takes us to item D, planning manager comments.
So I don't have any updates, or we don't have any updates for this evening, but just a reminder for the zoning code update, if you do have any comments, to send that over to us. We're starting to compile all the comments for the public review draft.
Perfect, thank you for that update. And that takes us to item E, adjournment at 6:37 PM. We'll close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Can I make a personal comment off, not related to the meeting? I just want